Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So my name's Katie and today I'm going to be doing a guide to N.K Jemisin's books. So I'm back filming again. It's actually evening, so I don't know if this lighting's okay. I thought it was quite nice actually. It's kind of like evening sunset vibes. I can't really study in the evening, so I thought I'd film a few videos because I was just so excited because I love filming. It's like so much fun for me. So yeah, so I just thought it would be a good evening activity. So I wanted to do a guide to N.K Jemisin's books because I've now read, well, I haven't read all of them, but I've read like at least the start of every series. A lot of people are expressing more interest in reading her books now, which is great. And yeah, you should be supporting Black authors always, and not just for this month, because there are so many great books out there, and N.K Jemisin is one of those authors. So yeah, so her books are amazing, and yeah, so I just wanted to go through each of her series and talk a little bit more about each one and where you might want to start. Also, to my knowledge, the worlds are not connected in any way. Because like with the Cosmere and stuff, they're all those books like in one big universe, but I think her books, they're all completely separate, each different series. So that's that. Also, I just thought the pigtails were so cute. Okay, that's irrelevant. So to start with, I'm going to start by talking about the Dreamblood Duology. So this is her first, I believe this is her first book, or not her first published series. So with the Killing Moon is the first book and the Shadowed Sun is the second book. So these are ones, I actually haven't read the Shadowed Sun yet. I'm starting a buddy read with that very soon. And I buddy read the Killing Moon with three lovely ladies. So I'll link up their channels below. It's Angela from Literature Science Lines, Justine from I Should Read That, and Eva from, so yeah, definitely check them all out. And I had a great time buddy reading the Killing Moon. This one was just so great. It's kind of set in this world, which is, I think I read in the interview at the end, it's inspired by ancient Egypt, and we're following, it explores a lot of themes of kind of church versus like state. So, well, state as in the kind of prince, because you have this church called the Hetwa, and you're following a priest and his apprentice from them. And then you also have this character of the prince who's quite like mysterious, and you don't really know whether he's good or bad or like what he's working for. And he's such a fascinating character. And then you also have this kind of ambassador from a different country who's like come, and she's trying to solve a mystery. Yeah, and then you also have this really fascinating magic system which is based on this thing called Dreamblood. So the priests from this Hetwa church, some of the like division of them are called gatherers, and they sort of like reap the souls of people, almost like scythes from the Scythe trilogy. Yeah, and so when a person dies, they like gather their dream blood. So yeah, that's kind of how the magic system works. And this magic is it's starting to like go a bit haywire, and these like people are starting to be corrupted. So yeah, so that's fascinating. So I'd say this is a good place to start with her books. I don't think it's my absolute like favourite of them, because you can kind of tell it's a debut just because I think the characters aren't quite as developed as like maybe some of her later books, but it was still like a really solid book. So if you like kind of like a lot of kind of discussion around like religion and sort of what kind of like life and death means, sort of like having a good death as well was quite a theme in this book, which I really liked. So yeah, there are some kind of things that you might like in this series. And yeah, I haven't actually read the Shadowed Sun yet, but that is the second book, and this is a duology. So then next I'm going to talk about the Inheritance trilogy. So I have these on my Kindle, actually not physically, but yeah, this is a series, and it's set in like this, the first one anyway, set in like this kind of floating palace thing, and there's like these gods roaming the halls. The main character, Yen, I think she's called Yen. I'm really bad at pronouncing fantasy names, but she's coming, a bit like the other book, she's coming, yeah, so the city of Sky, and her mother has just been murdered, so she's coming to the city to try and like solve and work out what's going on. And when she's there, her like grandfather's like the big the like main guy in charge, and Yin gets named heir. He sort of ends up in this like struggle for the throne, and then there's all these like god characters that are sort of have their own agendas and they're like trying to help her out or like trying to work against her. And yeah, and there's these two like, and there's this Nahadoth who, I don't know, he's like the god of night and he's like so mysterious. He's just such a great character. I think N.K Jemisin really excels at writing these like kind of like god characters who are in like human form. I don't know if that's, there's this something about her books, it's just this like essence of magic and I don't know, like immersive. They're really immersive, all her books. And yeah, it's just this type of character that she has, this one. And also she has a lot of, well, in this Inheritance trilogy and also in the Broken Earth, there is like a character who's like a kid but they're not really a kid, which I think is so cool. I just love that trope. But yeah, so these books anyway, so that's the first one, which is called The 100,000 Kingdoms. And then the second book, so these books are they're all set in the same world and they're kind of following the aftermath of each other, but there is quite a big time jump between each book. The second book is called The Broken Kingdoms, and I think this one is my favourite in the trilogy. And in this one we're following Ori, and she's actually blind, which I think is really fascinating to read from. And she sort of ends up like almost adopting this like god who's been like outcast. And yeah, and she kind of looks after him and like nicknames him Sunny, which is funny because he is like the god of sun or light or something, but he's also really grumpy. And yeah, they just have such a great dynamic. And yeah, the plot in that one is just mwah. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to like spoil anything. But if you like the premise of 100,000 Kingdoms, yeah, it's really good. And it's a lot same with the themes of like the god and like gods on earth and like demigods and kind of the like, yeah, children of the gods. Yeah, and then the last book is called The Kingdom of Gods. These are all quite samey names. But yeah, and this one is also following the kind of character from the first book actually, and his relationship with this pair of siblings, which is so fascinating. I always love sibling dynamics in books. And yeah, so I think where this series really excels, the Inheritance trilogy, is the characters. I think they're just so good in this series, and they're so like vibrant and off the page. Sort of the development of the world as well, like the politics of the world and how it progresses through the series, I think is so fascinating. Yeah, like this world is very fractured and divided, and it's sort of like the lengths people go to for like power, or not always power, just like, so that's that series. So then next is probably her most popular series, and that is the Broken Earth trilogy. So the first one is the 5th season. Second one is the Obelisk Gate, and the third one is the Stone Sky. So these have all won Hugo Awards, so they're very well beloved, and well, slightly unpopular opinion, but these ones aren't my favourite of the books. I think I love the Inheritance trilogy and the City We Became more, but they're still really good. Like I gave them all 4 stars at least, and maybe gave the last one 4.5. But yeah, these are just absolutely fantastic. I think they're not the best place to start from her books, just because the first one, well, they're all, one of the character points of view is in second person, and I think that doesn't take away from the story, but I think it is quite hard to get into. Like, I'm not sure I'm a big fan of second person really. Yeah, but the characters in this book are so well crafted, like especially in the first book you're following 3 different perspectives of kind of women from all different ages of life. So you have this quite young character who's just kind of exploring her powers for the first time, and she kind of gets taken away to this like school. And then you have a kind of slightly older character, I would say mid-20s. She's been sent on like a mission thing with this kind of older mentor figure who's the best. Alan Foster, I just love him. He's like this kind of grouchy mentor, but he's just so funny. And yeah, him and Spy 90's relationship is just so good. And then you have Essen, who's an older character, and she's like a mother, and so her son gets murdered at the start of the book, and she's going after her daughter who's been like taken away. She's gone missing, so she's trying to track down her daughter. So they're the 3 main characters that we follow. The world keeps like ending and then like not restarting. It's like quite apocalyptic, and at the start of the book there's this massive like rift that forms, and it's causing all this catastrophical like environmental consequences. I don't know, like if a super volcano went off, all that kind of stuff that you'd get, like the ash cloud and the yeah, it's been a long time since I did my A-level in geography. But yeah, so that's kind of what this one follows, and it's just kind of really a story of like survival and kind of the lengths you go to for your loved ones, and there's just so many like important topics that are explored, like racism and classism and environmentalism. They're all kind of explored. Like, I think especially in the later books with the environment thing and like how the kind of people in the past like broke the world almost, and because you have this kind of concept of Father Earth, who's like almost like our equivalent of Mother Nature, I guess, who's kind of angry, and yeah, and you just have some absolutely great characters in this. Yeah, and the kind of narrative tricks as well in this one are so good. She really excels at that. So this one and the Inheritance trilogy, actually, there's some quite good little like at the end you just sort of it's so good. I think one of my favourites is the 5th season. There's a big twist at the end of this one which was so good. I guess like a connection like to, if you read this will make sense, but if you haven't you won't know what I'm talking about, so it's not a spoiler. I like guess 2 but not 3 of the connections, if that makes sense. So yeah, but that was so great. And also at the end of the Breaking Kingdoms, the like who the story's being told to was such a great twist. Like I was like but yeah, so this one. And then the second one is kind of like following on from the first one, quite like soon after. Whereas with the Inheritance trilogy, it's like big time skips. But this one's like it might be a year or something. And then The Stone Sky, yeah, is just the finale, which is excellent. And I think this one especially really explores motherhood, which I'm not a mother, still too young. I find that so fascinating to read about, and it's just a really powerful trilogy, and I think everyone should read it. And yeah, N.K Jemisin deserves all the love she gets for this series. So that's a great one. I actually forgot to mention in the Inheritance trilogy bit that there are some novellas attached to that series actually, which I haven't read. I should get on that. So one is called Shades and Shadow. I'm looking at my laptop. And one is called The Awakened Kingdom. So I believe The Awakened Kingdom is actually like the kind of finale to the Inheritance trilogy. Yeah, so that one looks like, so at the end of the Inheritance trilogy, sort of a big event happens. So I'm guessing that one's sort of the like aftermath. Anyway, on to I think what is my favourite of her books and her newest release, but that is The City We Became. So this is the start of what I believe is going to be a trilogy, maybe the Great Cities it's called, I think. So this one's called The City We Became. I love these pink edges. They just converted me to sprayed edges. Yeah, so this is the start of the trilogy, but there's only one out at the moment. And this one we're following is set in New York, and so it's a bit more like almost urban fantasy, where the other books are very much high fantasy. And we're following these 5 different characters who are all kind of embodiments of different boroughs of New York. And it's just such a vibrant book. You just feel so like alive while reading it. I don't know. And I learned so much about kind of New York and the culture of New York, because I mean, like, I'm a bit ignorant when it comes to like American cities. Like I know the names of them, but I don't know the like nuances of all the different kind of boroughs. So yeah, so learning about the different boroughs was so fascinating, and I think she captures the like personalities of them really well. Well, I thought she did anyway. And yeah, I think this book has some of her best like character work. The characters are just so like well crafted, and they really like jump off the page at you, and it's so diverse as well, like kind of terms of everything, like race, sexuality, gender, age, just everything. And experience as well, like in the city, if that makes sense, or like length of time in the city. Like some of the characters are like new to the city, some of the characters have lived there all their life, some have lived there for a few years, and I think that's really nice, and it like captures the way that like anyone can be in New York almost, as long as they live there. And yeah, and the magic's so cool. There's like this woman in white that's like coming to get them. And it's a really fun ride, but it also like discusses so many important themes and like, yeah, really kind of relevant and important cultural topics. And I think because this one is kind of sort of set in our world, so I think you really get those themes. Like in her other books it's more like parallels to our world, but this one it's like is our world. So yeah, so one of the characters is very much kind of very unlikable, and she has quite she has very kind of bigoted, like ignorant views, and I think it's interesting to see that, like how that influences her actions and how she sort of is working against everyone even though she doesn't see that. And I think that's a really important thing to discuss, like how those kind of attitudes are just, they're setting us back. And yeah, and I think this book does that, really shows that really nicely. I don't know if that came across well, but I think I made the point I wanted to make. But yeah, this is just such a great book, and I think if you like sort of, and I'd actually say this is a really great place to start for her books as well, because it's probably like the most, not simple, but like easy to read kind of. I don't know, I like books that are like easy to read. It's all like third person, and you don't have a lot of like, you have several POVs, but you don't have a lot of like wild time jumps or anything like between POVs and stuff. So yeah, so this one's a really great place. And I think if you just want like a really kind of impactful novel, but also like that's so much fun to read and you'll just fly through it, I think this one's a really great one for you. So, and then also finally, one book that I haven't read is called How Long Till Black Future Month. So I believe this is kind of an anthology of short science fiction stories by her. So I am planning on reading this very soon because it sounds so good. I'll read you the synopsis because I can say things better than me. It says, in these stories, Jemisin sharply examines modern society, infusing magic into the mundane, drawing deft parallels in the fantasy realms of her imagination. Dragons and hateful spirits haunt the flooded streets of New Orleans in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. That sounds really good. In a parallel universe, a utopian society watches our world, trying to learn from our mistakes. A black mother in the Jim Crow South must save her daughter from a fae offering impossible promises. And in the Hugo Award-nominated short story, The City Born Great, a young street kid fights to give birth to an old metropolis's soul. I'm not sure if that's actually like the start of The City We Became. But anyway, they all sound so good. I just want to read it now. So yeah, so that sounds like a great thing. And I think that's just, yeah, a collection of short stories, kind of speculative. Oh yeah, I mean, we don't have dragons, so well, maybe we do, we'll never know. But yeah, so they sound fantastic. So I think if you like the kind of short stories or like speculative sciencey fiction, her books in general do kind of blur the line between science fiction and fantasy. But yeah, I would highly recommend any of them. So I hope this video inspired you to read some of her books or helped you out in any way, like where to start. And yeah, so if you read any of her books or are interested in a particular one or have any more questions, please leave a comment down below. I always love chatting to everyone. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I hope you're all having a great day, and I will see you next time.